this episode, we look at Freemasonry's value proposition. What does it offer its members? And is this what lodges are actually offering? We talk about lodge revitalization, helping brothers find their place in the fraternity, education as both a strength and a weakness in Freemasonry, the importance of Masonic funerals, how transformation can make or break a lodge, the importance of visiting other lodges, and the Lone Star Freemason, which is a blog, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. Before we get started, I also want to give a huge shout out to Brother Francisco Garcia, who is a past master of Hidalgo number 1036 here in Texas. He created the intro music at the beginning of this episode, and I think he did a fantastic job. If you like his work, I'm going to include links to his SoundCloud and his YouTube channel below in the show notes. Please check out his content and show him your support. This is Masonic Improvement, a podcast, YouTube channel, and blog dedicating to taking good lodges and making them better. I'm your host, Justin Jones. Thank you for joining today. We have a very special guest today, Brother Jason West. So without any further ado, let's just get started. Brother Jason West, how are you, sir?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jason.
Well, I'm a past master of Kelly Lodge, 1131 in San Antonio, and I'm currently the junior warden, and I'm the senior warden at Hondo City Lodge, number 756 in Hondo, Texas, and an endowed member at Nat M. Washer Lodge, 1270 in San Antonio. So I'm quite busy. I'm currently the district communications officer of Masonic District 39C. So, and among many appendant bodies as well, Scottish Rite, York Rite side, and past commander of my commandery as well. So,
very cool. You said 39C?
That's correct. Yes.
Well, why is it divided like that? I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, San Antonio is pretty large, so I think we have. It's probably not the exact number, but around 29 or 30 lodges, I think, in the San Antonio area. So that's it used to just be 39, and they have split it into three different districts. But we still, with the Master Wardens and Secretaries Association, is still 39, and we all three meet together there, and the district deputy grand masters and the district teams work together. So
we'll see.
But we do have the lodges split into the districts, individual districts.
So the Master Warden Secretary Association sounds like it's a pretty big meeting then. You got basically every lodge from San Antonio coming to it. Sounds like a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have different workshops. Our president this year, Chris Pistorio, he's the master of Kelly Lodge right now, and he's been doing a great job of getting different workshops put on, and we had a funeral workshop that was put on there, actually teaching how the proper way to conduct a Masonic funeral with the funeral teams, and it was very good. And I believe some of the other districts are following suit now and starting to give those workshops as well. So it's really benefited us here.
Excellent. So why did you join Freemasonry?
Well, I think several different reasons. For me, I'm a history buff, and I know a lot of people say, historical reasons, but I think that kind of led me into it. But there's several reasons, and I think that I was in the military, in the Army, and I think that brotherhood and fellowship aspect drew me in as well. The esoteric aspect, it was very attractive to me as well, and definitely the philanthropy, and but education and self-improvement, I think is so. Those are kind of a list of things for me.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing that led me to it, but it took me 12 years that I thought I was studying it, studying Freemasonry, and I realized that when I was initiated, that I didn't learn anything.
Mhm.
You just learn a little historical data, things like that. But as you well know, you're not going to learn anything out of books, or you're not going to understand anything if you do read something. So, so for me, it was the deciding factor was that I knew several Masons and I knew they were good men, and I knew they wouldn't want me to do something that was bad for me.
Mhm.
And I trusted that with them, and that's why I should have been a Mason 12 years before I was. So,
How long have you
um,
been a Mason?
uh, 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
So, yeah,
So you
just
said
10 short years, and I've done a lot in these past 10 years.
so. You mentioned a few things that I think are really interesting that I really want to see if you can elaborate on a little bit. You said one of the things that attracted you was the esoteric aspect. Personally, from my experience, a lot of brothers don't really discover the esoteric aspect until they're already in. So, is that what you mean, or did you know something about that kind of before you got in? Did you know that there was probably more to it?
Yes, I kind of knew, I guess, that there was something to it that I didn't know. So that's kind of what drew me to it, was that there was an esoteric, um, I guess, element about Freemasonry, but it was something that I didn't know, but something that I was maybe searching for. If
Mhm.
if you know what I'm saying with that,
Absolutely.
um, and that's kind of what I feel is like today. There are so many men that are searching for things, or searching for something in society that they're not getting. Searching for something in life that society is not giving them, and that I believe Freemasonry will give a man, or fulfill that void, maybe, that in their life, or they're able to seek what it is that they're looking for. So that's and I think that that's kind of the future of Masonry. If we can kind of I guess kind of try to reach out to good men and give them what it is that they're looking for, give them something that they're not getting in society, and with what the world gives them.
I love that. Let me ask you this. I told you we might go down some rabbit holes here.
Sure, let's do it.
If Let's just back up. You said so. I wrote down. Men are searching for something in life that they can't find elsewhere. Just kind of to summarize, what you're saying. So here's my follow-up question. We know Freemasonry offers it, but is that what they are receiving?
I think it depends on the lodge, and I think it depends on the individual,
Mhm.
and the brothers that they surround themselves with. Um, I see some lodges that it's not happening in. They're not getting what they need. Um, but I do know that there are lodges out there that are evolving, and that are focused on, I think, a good positive direction for Masonry, as far as education and the esoteric, and but also the fellowship and the brotherhood, um, and giving the needs, helping the brothers in their lives. And I think, and to go back to what uh, most worshipful King Curry said in at his Grand Masters conference, that it's, you know reaching out to the brothers and seeing what they need in their lives, and trying to help them in different ways, and not just in the lodge, but what is it that I can do for my brother that could help him in his life?
Mhm.
What problems is he having that I might be able to help him out with, or at least just be there for him, and be able to help to guide him through it, or to be there, at least be there for him,
Practicing
as
that
he's
brotherly
going through it.
love.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, and not just, hey, I'm going to just see this guy at lodge and that's it. And then we'll see you next month. You know,
Yes.
uh, and primarily I surround myself with brother Masons, and there are people that call me constantly, and there are people that I call, and and it's not just a small circle. I have, I would say, different branches that I reach out to, in different organizations, and and that's the reason as well that I belong to a few different lodges, because I get something different out of each different lodge. Because all lodges are, they're the same in organization, but they're not the same. They're not the same makeup of individuals, and that's what intrigues me about it. And being able to have, this group of brothers over here that I'm able to see, and then and fellowship with and learn from, and to share my knowledge as well, and then to move over here and go over here, this week or whatever, and go see these brothers, and I get something different out of each lodge. And it's like, for instance, here goes a rabbit hole I'm going down, but so my home lodge is in San Antonio, in the city limits. So it's different when you have multiple lodges in a large metropolitan area, and you can do a lot of things in the community, but you're not really connecting with the community like you can with a smaller country lodge. So when I went out to visit with Hondo City Lodge, myself and a couple of other brothers, we went out and for an officer installation to visit, and they were like, "Hey, you want to join this lodge?" And I'm like, "Okay, absolutely." And they said, "We need your help." So that was perfect. We wanted to do it. So then we joined, we put in some work, and then we became the top 3 officers in the lodge, and I'm senior warden this year, and I'm looking forward to, if that's where the lodge wants me this upcoming year, then I'm planning that we're going to do good things. And it's been a turnaround out there, because of the fact is that we've been able to take how we do things, and we've gone there and we've gotten them involved again, and we're bringing back brothers that haven't been in years, and they're coming back. They're making a point to come to lodge, and we're getting out. COVID stopped us somewhat this past year, but we're getting in the community, and we're able to connect with the community more in a smaller town. And for me, that's something I haven't experienced before, belonging to lodges in the city and then going out to a smaller town and having that. And so I'm so excited for the upcoming year on all the things that we're going to get to do with community outreach and getting it in, getting them involved. And and even as far as historical presentations, we're looking at getting a historical marker for the lodge, and really highlighting our Texas Ranger roots out there. And I mean, it's just some really exciting stuff this year. And also, the interest came together so well that everybody started coming back to lodge and getting so interested that when I would talk about appendant bodies, I would talk about York right side, and a lot of guys were interested, but they just didn't want to drive to San Antonio. So, there's no York right chapter and councils out there. So we were able to work with the Grand Chapter and Council to work on trying to charter a chapter and council there. So, and there's been great interest, and everybody's really involved and excited about it. And we have a brother that's 85 years old. He brought me his petition the other day, and he's like, I'm so excited about this. He said, it's a new chapter in my life, and I'm ready to learn something. I'm ready for more light. And that was really awesome. And we're bringing him back and getting him back involved. And I think that's a major key is with Most Worshipful Curry's Bring a Brother Back program. I mean, and we were doing this last year, and it really works in with his message this year for doing that. And so that's what we're doing is we're trying to reach out to, you know, past masters that haven't been in a while, older brethren that hadn't been. And two, we're looking through in all of my lodges, we're looking through the maybe candidates that maybe didn't finish. We're reaching back out to them. We're trying to get them to come back. You know, those are things that we're trying to do to revitalize our lodges, because
Yeah.
you know, that's what we have to do. It's not so much let's go out and I mean, yeah, sure, we need new members, sure, but the thing is we have to sustain and maintain the membership that we have, and we have to give them something. Going back, circling back to um, the initial, I think, question was about giving them, you know, giving the brethren that we have already, giving them something that worth coming to lodge for.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it be, let's do some education, let's have some speakers come in, because we have, you know, Brother John Nagy from Florida. I've been friends with him for a very long time, and he has come out here to visit with us, and does a wonderful job every time. And it's wonderful to have speakers from other places and other lodges, but also we do it as well. Yeah, I just think that going back to kind of what I was saying is that we need to bring our brothers back to lodge, but we need to give them something to come back for.
Yeah.
And we need to, you know, and I think, you know, I mean, and we've done this in the past, you know, send out a questionnaire, like a survey, and say, hey, what is it that you're looking for in lodge? What can bring you back? Because even though we have great ideas, and I see this in a lot of lodges, that you'll have brothers with great ideas and we're doing a lot of great things, but then there's some brothers that are just not into that, and we're missing them somehow. We're missing what it is that we can offer them.
Yes.
And, you know, what is it that they need? And maybe we can do some type of function or have some type of get together or fellowship that might include, you know, maybe a study group or something, you know. I mean, because like I you know, going back to the esoteric things like that, you know, I'm in Scottish Rite and Valley of San Antonio, and we have an awesome CME program, the continuing Masonic education class. We have two different. We have an online version and also a different one that for in person. And I've been doing that for years. And man, you're talking about some great conversation. And you know, and that's separate from the stated meetings.
Yeah.
So that's something. And believe it or not, you know, sometimes we have, you know, 25, 30 guys, brothers there, and, you know, and it's never a dull conversation ever. You know, and it's something that you read and study before, and then you go in and everybody gets to talk about, you know, what it means to them, you know, what the topic meant to them. And, you know, you get a lot of things that, you know, and I think with our lodges, I think why not pick a topic that you can study, and then have everybody come together like a round table and just discuss it. And, you know, things like that. But basically just finding what it is that your brothers in your lodge need.
So you address some things that I think are very important. First of all, without directly addressing it, you really point out the importance of having the right leadership. When you and your friend stepped in, it sounds as though the lodge benefited greatly from it. You know, it created the right change that it needed. But you also talk about bringing brothers back. And I've had some people tell me before that I'm a little critical about the whole Bring Your Brother Back program. And I'm not critical about it, but this idea that, you know, you could just reach out to former brothers and bring them back and hopefully retain them without changing yourself, right? If you're the same lodge that they left, then they're not going to stay around, or they won't come at all. And
Right.
what you're talking about is transformative, putting the right people in leadership and actually transforming the lodge. It's not the same organ. It's not the same lodge. You know, the number's still there. The name's still there. They probably meet in the same building, but internally it's not the same lodge. It's different. And that's why you're able to attract people and retain them. But I love the idea. You know, I don't disagree at all with bringing brother back or reaching out to brothers. A lot of people just want to feel as though you actually care enough to actually reach out to them. And that's very important. So I just wanted to, really, I guess, kind of summarize, what I got from that, because I think that's very powerful. And I've harped on leadership before, but as far as bringing brothers back, and I know there's a huge emphasis on that, but if you don't have anything if all you're doing is opening and reading minutes and Grand Lodge or local communications and closing, and maybe arguing about a fundraiser, that's why they left to start with. You're not going to bring them back for something like that. But actually bringing actual content to the lodge, like you described, it's fantastic. And it sounds like you're doing great work there. You mentioned something else, and it was just kind of in passing, but I think it needs to be looked at a little bit more closely. You basically said that there's a difference between studying and learning. You said you studied Freemasonry for a long time, but you weren't necessarily learning about Freemasonry. And what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, number one, the types of materials that I was able to read didn't really teach me anything other than maybe historical aspects or just kind of a generalization. And even some of it that I did read would now it means something to me, but at that time it didn't mean anything because I didn't know what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think unless you've been through the degrees, then you don't understand it completely. So you're not going to understand it. You're not going to know what it is that you're looking at. So because you haven't been brought to light. So you can, and it's just like afterwards you look around and there's things that are in front of you that have always been there, but now you see it clearly. And you didn't see it before, and the light has been shed on it. And that's kind of the thing with that is you can read something, you can study something, but if you don't understand the context or have the tools or working tools that can go with that, then you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna understand. So the thing is, and even though there are many brothers that have been, raised to Master Mason, and they're still, for years, they've gone along and they still don't understand it because they haven't gone back to study it.
Yeah.
And that's what we tell Master Masons and when they're raised in our lodge is that, look, this is just the beginning. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. This is where you start to learn. And, but, you've heard the term, you get what you put into it. Well, you get out of it what you decide to study, and what you study and what you attempt to learn. And the thing is you have to learn, get yourself in that aspect, and two, not just try to do it yourself, discuss it with brothers and get their idea of or their view of maybe what they think that means. And and you learn from your brothers. And and that's why I think the study groups, the round tables, those are the CME groups, those are important. And I think so many times we're not doing that. We're just going through the motions, just like you said. Show up, read the minutes, do the business, and get out of there.
Yeah.
And what good is that? It's like a lot of brothers saying, "Why am I going to waste my time going down there? If I'm not going to get out of it what I thought I joined for.
Mhm.
And so, and going back to what I said, that's where we have to figure out where we're lacking. And like you said, we have to be transformative. We have to change that. We have to change who we are, and what we're doing.
Mhm.
And we, not everything, not everything. I think definitely we should keep our traditions, and a lodge should keep its personality of where it came from. But and a lot of brothers, you get a lot of pushback. I mean, we've had some. It's been a little uncomfortable for some people about our new funeral team, because they were used to, you know, for a long time. We've just had a couple of great brothers that have been out there just doing every funeral possible
Yeah.
and doing a great job. And but the thing is, we've got to be able to help them out and be able to do those things. But it's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a team.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a funeral team, and it's a lot more impressive when you do that. But the thing is don't push those brothers out. When you're making some changes, don't push them out of the way. You include them and bring them in, and then let them know that you're helping them. And I wrote an article for my the Lone Star Freemason. I wrote an article, I guess, I don't know, maybe it was a year or so ago, and it was about including your past masters, because I started seeing that you've got a lot of when you have new brothers coming in, which is great. Obviously you want to put them to work, so they get put to work. But then as the newer Masons are being put to work, some of the past masters or older brothers are being put out to pasture. So that's the way they feel,
Yeah.
and they're not being included. And you do have some lodges where the past masters basically try to run everything and stay there. But I think it's a good balance. You've got to work together as a team, and you have to accept the new coming in, but also learn from the guys that have already been there.
Mhm.
And then you have to figure out a team to how to fit everybody in together. And because if you take duties away from a brother that's been doing it for a long time, if you take those duties away from him, then he has no purpose anymore, and then he's just going to go home. And
Yeah.
why am I going to go to lodge if they don't need me anymore? Because that's the way they feel, is they don't need you anymore. And
You see
I
that
mean,
often
they're
with past masters.
absolutely. And then too, that's why some of us have kind of branched out and got some other lodges to where they can use me.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's what we do. But don't neglect your lodge. As long as you can handle it and juggle different uh, different responsibilities, but always focus on your lodge. But but I always try to give other brothers the opportunity to work in the lodge, and then I know when to roll back a little bit and let somebody else take it. But hey, and then I'm looking, hey, where can you use me?
Mhm.
If I'm asked to do something, I always say, hey, however the lodge can use me, I'm ready. I'm ready to serve. I'm willing to serve. And I think that's something that we've got to really teach our that's another thing, is teaching servant leadership. And that you're not coming in to run things. You're coming in to serve,
Mhm.
and and not just impose everything that you want to do, but get feedback from everybody, and serve the best way you can. And in doing that, bringing that back to just trying to give everybody an opportunity to put the work in.
Yeah.
Give people work. Don't do everything yourself, because I see that so many times too, that you have a handful of brothers pulling all the weight for a lodge, but
Then
and
they
they
burn
wonder
themselves
why.
out.
Yes, they burn themselves out, and then they wonder why nobody else is doing anything. Well, have you asked somebody else?
Yeah.
Have you asked another brother to come in and assist you on that? I mean, you don't. I mean, uh, they talk about committees. A lot of times you don't want to assign a committee, but the thing is if you do it the right way, a committee can really work, and you can work together as a team and not put everything on the one individual. I mean, he can still be involved, but start teaching and mentoring,
Mhm.
mentoring other brothers and teaching them how to do those things, because we never know when we're not going to be around anymore. I mean, we know our own mortality, and it's we have to train others that might be able to fill our shoes and be able to take over for us if we're not there.
We often want to learn things, and even if we don't mean to do it, even if we do it for the best intentions, often we do it because there is some kind of gratification, from being able to do it, especially if you're one of the only people that can, right? But what we often forget, well, maybe not even forget, it might even not even cross our minds. We should really be training the next generation of leadership all the time, always. Always, it's like a cycle. And as long as you are alive and active, you should be training that next generation of leadership. And that generation should do the same thing. And I think that ties back to something I wanted to ask you about. You hear a lot about degree teams, but you don't hear often about funeral teams any longer. And there was a time where those were common, right? And in fact, often the few people, the one or two people in the districts that are performing, you know, funerals are often just the remnants of what was once a degree team. And unfortunately, it's usually someone that's very advanced in age, and they just get there and do it by themselves. So the reason I mentioned this is what really induced you guys to form this funeral team?
Well, I think because initially it was something I've been interested in for a while. I mean, I I used to be in ministry, and I have done so many funerals that I did, and I actually did my both of my parents' funerals, but back about 4 years ago. And for me, it's something we discussed today, that is the last, that's the final rites, and probably the most important um, ceremony that you can do for a brother. We initiate, we pass, and we raise brothers, and then we do all these other appended body uh, degrees and orders and knightings, and all those are great things, and those are great things that you can do for brothers. But
Mhm.
there is nothing better than, unfortunately, when we lose a brother, but there is nothing more beautiful than our funeral rites
Mhm.
that we can give a brother and be able to give for his family. And that's how you touch their family and their friends, and the public.
Yeah.
That is one of the few ways that they see us when we're out there. And
When
it's
you, I was just gonna say, if you look in the minutes and even probably the newspapers of older lodges, and older newspapers, if you can like look in the archives, you'll often read about Masonic funerals, and they're more like processions. They of course there weren't cars at the time often, but they would they would lead in a procession from the church or the lodge, with the deceased brother, and they would go to the graveside and perform the Masonic funeral, the last rites. And that seems so grand, and compared to the way we do things today, and it was, I mean, honestly, it's beautiful. It's you're making a big deal. And like you say, it's really probably the most important thing that we could do for our brothers. The most important service we could offer. And it's kind of diminished since
right.
back in the day, which is very
Well,
unfortunate.
it's such a comfort to their family as well.
Mhm.
We got so many comments, and so much warmth and hospitality from the family. today, and the funeral that we performed at, and it was at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery, and so he had the military honors, and we parked way back from it, and we got dressed, and everybody wearing black suits and white gloves, white aprons, and evergreen, and we marched in procession from where we were all the way to the pavilion where the funeral was performed. So just that in itself, going back to what you were saying about a procession, that basically that's what we did as a team, and the brothers that were with us, and we had people tell us that that was impressive,
Mhm.
and then the words, and I mean, it was just so wonderful to me. It's it's the best way I think that I can serve um, a brother and his family,
Yeah.
as a funeral master. And but going back to what you were saying is, yeah, so many things have been gone, and I think we need to bring that tradition back. But that's something we were looking into as well. And we understand that a lot of us work, and a lot of us can't always get time off. But what we're doing is we're having uh, several members to basically be alternates, and we're, like you said, teaching other people, and that's what we're doing. We're having like a large funeral team, so if one of us can't go, then everybody, we have people that can take the different places.
Mhm.
And because we do have several brothers that are retired that are able to do it, but some of us that are still working, uh you know I can kind of make my schedule sometimes, and I can work it out, but I might not always be able to do it. But that's why we're ensuring that if we obligate ourselves to assist, then we're going to be able to do it. And we don't want to lack in that. And this basically went back, it was my idea, that I was going to do, that I was going to try to learn the funeral. um, and so I started learning it, and then we were talking about it with brother, worshipful brother, Chris Pistorio, and he's like, hey, why don't we do a workshop on it for MWSA? So I said, man, that's a great idea. So he got with brother Chris Williams, and asked him to be able to put something together for it, and we did, and it had a great turnout. And now we're putting together funeral teams, in all of the districts.
Mhm.
And he's asked me to be the funeral master for our district, and for our lodge as well. So I'm doing it, and brother Pastorio's doing it as well. So, but it's it's something that I talked about. I wanted to do it because it's something that means a lot to me. But
Yeah.
then he really thought about it as well, and he's like, hey, we can do something with this, and he put that together, and it just and with the help of brother Williams, and man, it's been great. And a lot of people in the 39th districts, they've just done a great job supporting it, and all the district deputies and the district teams have been very supportive. And so several lodges are putting together their own teams, and so it's, like I say, it's been exciting, and it's something that we took a photo together afterwards, and and we had brothers tell us, hey, can I get a copy of that, because we want to be able to see what it's supposed to look like.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's what we did. We formed up. We've had practices, and we're making sure that we're practicing, and getting it right. And then we show up early, and everybody is assigned their equipment. And then just like the military, everybody, we stand in formation, and I go down through and just check everybody, give an inspection, make sure everybody looks good, and then we're ready to roll. And it's a very solemn occasion. And I hopefully we did well. I mean, the feedback that we got was great from the family. So, and we even had some questions about masonry. So, had some men come up to us and want to discuss it with us. So, so there's that. And I know Brother Chris Hodap that he says that's how he came to masonry, was that he went to a funeral and saw a Masonic funeral and was like,
Mhm.
wow, I want to be a part of that. And that's why we have to do everything that we can to make it look right.
When we all go into the fraternity, we have certain expectations. Um, in our mind, we kind of imagine what Freemasonry is going to be like. How did the reality of Freemasonry compare with your expectations when you joined?
Well, I would say honestly, I didn't know really what to expect in the beginning, but I think that it I think it's really exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
and in some ways, you know, I know I hear brothers all the time, that say that it doesn't meet their expectations, and they feel that you know that it's not what they thought it was. But my thing is I couldn't expect a lot out of something that I didn't know a lot about, even though, like I say, I thought I studied, and I studied history of things. But I think for me, it's exceeded my expectations, because for me, it's masonry is a lifestyle. And I'm so busy with, Masonic events and Masons in my life, and doing things for others through Masonry, that um, I guess I never thought it would be, maybe that it was going to be something more of, and I belong to organizations of different types in the past. And maybe I thought it was going to be something that I would be a part of, I would learn something from, and it would be a great thing. But I just didn't know how much it was going to be a part of my life
Mhm.
and a part of who I am. And I believe that, you know, even though, before, we know that when we come in, we're men of good character, we have good morals, but masonry takes you somewhere else. It uses all of that. It takes all of that, and it takes you to a different level.
Mhm.
Um, and like I say, I don't think it does for everybody, but I think some of us do. Some of us, we love it so much, and love serving our brothers and, and others, to the point that, it's a lifestyle, and it's something that we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine, I guess, life right now, basically without masonry.
Mhm.
So, because it's such a large part of my life, and it's a lot of what I do. And so I would say definitely I'd have to say it exceeded my expectations in most ways, because I just didn't know how much a part of it that I would be, and that I'm always doing something in it, and trying to help my brothers and just serve,
Yeah.
because I love our fraternity so much that I enjoy it, and I work hard. I mean, it's just but I've got brothers beside me working hard, and that's what we do. We work hard together for a common goal.
I see.
And I think through that, then we're making, I believe that we're making society better. I mean, we're going to eventually. Um, right now it's kind of it's kind of iffy right now with the way things are going, but I definitely think that we're making an impact with people, a little bit at a time. And I think that's where we need to continue moving in the future,
Mhm.
and that's where we need to be going with it. So, and reaching out to these these men that are looking for something, that
Yeah.
are looking for something they're just not getting.
I love that perspective, and I've heard different answers with that, but no one has ever really said as far as it exceeding their expectations because of how big of a life it would become, how big of a part of their life it would become. And, in that aspect, I can relate completely. So I, I appreciate that you pointed that out, because that is a very new way of looking at it, at least from my perspective. And I think that's excellent. Absolutely. What are the strengths and weaknesses of our fraternity?
Well, I think a lot of the strengths that, I've talked about some of those, and, and I can talk about basically from my perspective and from how it's been for me, is that I think we're very strong and I'm going to use some of the same words that I've used before in our brotherhood and our fellowship. And I think definitely our philanthropy. And I think education in some ways are our strengths. Um, because we have the education there, but maybe not utilizing it
Mhm.
as much. I think Freemasonry as an institution has the education
Yes.
and has the philanthropy, has the brotherhood, has that. But like I say again, it depends on the individual lodge. Um, it depends on the individual Mason. It depends on what they're doing. But I really think the strengths for us are those, and that we reach out to people, and I mean, in my life, that's the way it's been.
Mhm.
And that I always have brothers that, I can count on. And, you know, and this is around the world. I've, as we've discussed before, I've traveled extensively, and, I've been to lodge in Japan. I was in Okinawa for a while, and I have brothers in Japan I still talk to, and that I know I could count on
Mhm.
if I needed them. And brothers in England, Ireland, Scotland, um, and pretty much all over the world. I mean, and I've been to lodge over there, and I belong to some lodges over there. And um, just knowing that anywhere we go, I have somebody.
Yeah.
And if you travel, I really think that's probably our one of our largest strengths. Um, I think, but like I was going back to, if I can kind of blend over with the weaknesses, and kind of blend it over, kind of segue into that by talking about the education that I think as an institution we're strong in education. But the thing is utilizing the education and getting it out there. That can kind of be maybe a weakness
Mhm.
that for some lodges, is that we're not. Some lodges are not educating. They're not doing education,
And to be
and
to
maybe
be clear, you're not talking about a book of short talk bulletins. You're talking
right,
it's
right,
something a
right,
little
right,
bit deeper than that.
right. Sure. I mean, and that's fine for a little. If you don't have a lot of time, but you want to give a little brief, interesting fact. I do those, but I also do deeper presentations as well.
Mhm.
So, and I kind of judge it. I gauge it and see how much time that we're going to have, and you kind of got to gauge the room. If sometimes if the brothers are just wanting to get out of there, then you don't want to. I'm not going to waste my time standing there and trying to share something with them and give them a presentation, and if they're not receptive to it.
Yeah.
But most of the time they are. But like I say, there are those nights that when business has run long and you've had a lot of discussion and things like that, and then it comes time for it, uh, you know, uh, Brother West, your education moment and your education presentation. And I look around the room, and if I see people go, oh, because they know I'm going to talk, and because I enjoy going to lodge, and I'm gonna talk. And I've probably been talking half of the lodge meeting anyway. Standing up and having input on things, because like I say, um, it's like a home for me. It's like a family for me,
Mhm.
and I'm involved in what's going on. So, um, but yeah, so you want to go deeper and give a presentation of something of interest, not something. And when I say education as well, I mean, it's important to do the work,
Mhm.
to your memorization, your floor work, all that's important.
Yeah.
But also, there's a lot more to masonry than just going through the motions.
Yeah.
And so there's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And and I think that's where we're lacking in some ways, is that we have the tools there,
Mhm.
but we're not always utilizing the tools depending
Yes,
on the
sir.
lodge.
Where do you see our current course of our fraternity taking us in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, I'm really hoping for a revival in masonry, and I'm I'm seeing that somewhat. I'm
Mhm.
seeing the interest in trying to revive and transform um, lodges, and I'm seeing a lot more activity. And I think social media as well has enabled a lot of brothers from a lot of different places to connect
Mhm.
and to share ideas. And um, I so I really see that that could be a great tool for us. And however, that can also be a negative thing. Which going back to those weaknesses, I think that could be a thing as well. But so it could go, if we use it correctly, that can be, it can be used for good. And we can connect, because really that's the only reason that I use social media at all, is for masonry.
Yeah.
And because I enjoy keeping up with my brothers all over the world. But it I just I think the revival in masonry, if we continue to transform, and we're continuing to do these things um, to bring members back into lodge and give them something to be in lodge for, and then something that we're able to offer new members coming in. um, I see that we can grow that way.
Mhm.
But like you said earlier, it's got to be a transformation.
Yeah.
And but it's not a transformation in, I think it's a transformation back to tradition, back to where we started from,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Because I think we've gotten away from our beginnings. And so many of the reasons I think a lot of us became Masons, is because of those beginnings and those traditions. And but that's what I think. That's what I think. If we can do that, if we can continue to actually give the brothers something,
Mhm.
then I think that we're going to grow. And I don't see us dying. I hear every day people say, well, we're our fraternity is dying, our fraternity is dying, but that's what they're saying, but that's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I think it starts with us, and like what we're doing here, I think that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do something with what we have already in order to be able to, expand and to get more. Um, and that's how I kind of feel about the great architect is, he's not going to give you more, if you're not doing something with what you have, he's not going to give you more. So my thing on that is we're not going to be able to grow if we're not doing what we can with what we have.
Yes.
And we need to work on what we have. We need to maintain, sustain, and give the brothers already something to come back to, revitalize, transform, um, and grow.
Yes.
And when we're doing that and we're thriving, we need to be thriving, and that's going to bring more. That's going to attract more men of good character to come in, and all in the same token. I mean, it's going to bring, the same things that we're doing to bring our brothers back into lodge is going to be some of the same things that are going to attract men of good character, new Masons. And that's how we're going to grow. But we've got to get in our community. We've got to show them that we're relevant, and not just to do certain fundraisers and things like that. We have to find new ways to be able to connect with the community.
You used the word transformation several times. Now, I know from your Facebook, you're a very well-traveled Mason. I consider myself well-traveled, but not to the extent that you probably are. And so I want to share an observation with you. And I want to know if you agree or disagree. I've seen two types of lodges in my travels, and there's really not a whole lot in between. Basically, you have your dying lodges and your thriving lodges. I've noticed if a lodge seems as though it's dying, it's not doing much different than it always has been. The formula for a dying lodge or to kill your lodge seems to be open, read the minutes, do communications, plan fundraiser, and close, right? And not necessarily all that, but that's the basic formula. And on the other hand, I've seen lodges that are growing. And in fact, they appear as though they're thriving. And that's really where the transformation aspect comes in. Just from my observation. And again, I love to hear your thoughts on it. But the lodges that are thriving aren't doing things the same way other lodges are around them. They're separating themselves. Change is a 4-letter word in Freemasonry. So, we're not gonna say anyone's implementing changes or anything, but they're thinking outside the box. It's kind of like what you described with the funeral. You can memorize the funeral, like you can get a team and memorize it, but there's nowhere that says you have to do a procession, right? But there's nowhere that says you can't, but you're adding something extra to it. And I have seen lodges that are implementing like lighting, depending on the degrees, and incense, also depending on the degrees, long form lectures as opposed to just just a short form, and things like that. I've also seen lodges on the other end of the spectrum that are growing, but they're focusing primarily on fundraising, but they're growing. They're doing something different. And so really the bottom line is I guess what I want to say, and I'm curious how you feel about this. If your lodge is dying, you have to transform it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I've seen some of the same that you're talking about. But I have seen lodges, like you said, that are growing, but still, even if you're doing things, something else that I wanted to talk about as well to kind of throw into that is that if the lodges are not treating their brothers with brotherly love, then it doesn't matter how much fundraising you're doing. It doesn't matter how much education you're doing, all those things, then you're running people off still.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can be bringing in new members, but then you're running off the guys that you had and the brothers that you had. So it's definitely, like I've said several times, transformation, but, and not doing things the same way. And you were talking about as well, separating themselves from other lodges. To me, I think, like for us in our district, we're trying to get more. And being a district communications officer, what I'm doing is trying to bring lodges together, and so that they support each other and they go visit each other, and that actually brings lodges. It really helps to revive lodges as well, because then they're sharing information with each other. They're sharing with each other. The lodges that I've seen that totally isolate themselves, a lot of them are the ones that are dying.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying on that, but that maybe you step away and do something different from everybody else. But I think it's very important to visit with other lodges and definitely in the district, and get the district together. And it's like what we're doing in San Antonio. We're trying to foster visitation and get events going. And like sometimes, like if you have a called meeting, we're planning to maybe on that call meeting time, then we're not gonna meet at our lodge. We're gonna go and meet at another lodge in our district, and everybody's gonna go over there, and we're
Yeah,
gonna fellowship with them, and we're gonna see how they do things. And I think that's important, is to get out there and see what other lodges are doing. You
absolutely.
know,
You
and that's
can't
helped me
operate in a
tremendously.
vacuum.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's how I've been able to learn different things. I'm learning from other brothers.
Mhm.
It's not just all ideas that I'm coming up with. I mean, sometimes I do. It just, an idea. Hey, maybe we can do that. But a lot of times, I'm looking at lodges that are being successful, and I'm going to visit them. Hey, what is it that makes them successful? What is it that they're doing that maybe we could learn from them,
Yeah.
or that we could implement? And then what can I share? And I have people asking me sometimes, what do you think about this? So, and I try to help them out. And to me, it's not all about just me and my lodge. It's helping any lodge, and helping them out. If I can help them to succeed, then and so that's why we try to foster visitation with other lodges,
Mhm.
and that's to help the district itself grow. And then obviously, like we talked about, the three different districts in our one big one, and we're crossing over, districts and everything. So I know somebody in just about every lodge in this area. So um, but visitation is a big factor in your transformation, because
Mhm.
how are you going to transform if you don't know what you need to do? You
Yes.
need to go out there. You need to visit. You need to learn from other brothers. You need to study and research as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think it's research, and it's not just digging in books or looking on the internet. Go out and meet other brothers, meet other lodges.
Mhm.
Get with your district teams. Get with your district deputy grand master and all the district education officer, district instructor, district communications officer. Get with those guys. If you want ideas, they can come and they can help you.
Mhm.
And we can come in and try to help revitalize. Tell us what your problems are. We maybe we can come up with something to help you out, or direct you to somebody that can. So that's to me, I think that's very vital, is the visitation and getting around the different lodges. That's how you're going to be able to transform.
It has been my experience that visitation encourages visitation, right?
Right.
If you go to a local, like another local lodge, they'll often you'll see them within the next month or two. Some of them at your lodge at the next meeting. But I totally agree. Like I talk about separating ourselves, but I'm talking about as far as our practices go.
Yeah.
Definitely, we can't operate as an island. But if you in fact, I think you will dwindle and die if you don't visit with one another. I also think it's really important, if you're at a lodge and you know of a lodge that has practices you would like to adopt, it's very important to try and bring newer brothers, try to expose them to this. Obviously, you're not going to take an EA to a master's degree, right? But
Right.
you could take EAs to EA degrees. Same thing with all the others, and start exposing them to it as much as you can. I think personally, like the long form lectures are beautiful, but they're often not given. So if you know of a lodge that does do it, you want to try and get those guys there. If you know a lodge that does like a really good master's degree, you want to try to get people there, because you can talk about it all you want, but often seeing is believing. And so if you can get them there to actually witness it and see the impact it's having, that's how you get things implemented back in your own lodge, I think, because it helps build buy-in. Obviously, you can't take the whole lodge there, so the whole lodge isn't going to understand where you're coming from. But the more brothers that are exposed to it and can see it, that's how good practices get adopted, I think.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of that in the lodges in San Antonio. Uh, we will go and help out with degrees, and we have certain brothers that come and help us out, and there's certain brothers that are excellent with the lectures, and they come and do it because they do such a great job with it. But it inspires others in our lodge to say, hey, I want to learn that,
Mm-hmm.
because that was so beautiful. I want to learn how to do it like that. And I think that, because we have so many great brothers here in this area that do that, that'll go and help other lodges out, and they're they're planting those seeds, and I think that really helps, that revitalization,
Yeah.
by doing basically, absolutely what you said.
Let's talk a little bit about the Lone Star Freemason. What is it, and why did you create it?
Well, the Lone Star Freemason is, started out, I kind of put it together as a blog, but then it's also a Facebook page, and it's just basically a way for me to share my travels and the the thoughts that I have on masonry. And it basically started out too. I was asked to write an article. I was on the Midnight Freemasons, and by brother Robert Johnson, who happens to be my distant cousin as well. We
Oh,
found
wow.
out by he posted a thing about one of his ancestors, one of the first at Jamestown. And at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. And I said, wow, that's my ancestor too. And it was, that was pretty crazy. So he calls me bro cuz, and, but I'm his brother cousin, but, and he had asked me to write an article about that, about how we found out, about that, and how masonry actually brought us together. And, that we were distant cousins from way off, and we never would have met each other, and how masonry brought us together. So, uh, so in doing that, and I just always had these thoughts and things, and I saw people writing, and I said, well, I'm going to do a blog, and I guess I'm probably not going to do it all the time, but every now and then when I want to share something. So I did this. So I started writing some articles, and so I did a blog with it, and then I was on Facebook for masonry, and I said, well, I'll just make a page. And for a while there, I was like, I'm just going to get off of social media. It's just not all that great, and just the animosity and everything. So, and I kind of posted that out there, and just did a post and said, yeah, I'm thinking about just dropping off of here. And I had so many brothers that never commented or never liked on any of my posts or anything, and they said, no, please don't, because all of your travels and all of the things that you share mean something to us. And I'm not able to travel like you, and I'm kind of doing that through you. So please keep sharing what you're doing.
Mhm.
So through that, it's people said that it blessed them. So I was like, well, if they're enjoying it, then that's what I'll do. So that's kind of why I started doing that as well, so that I could share it on a larger scale and be able to, I love history, I love Masonic history, love Texas history. And being that, my job as a safety professional, I'm able to travel daily all over the state, and come back home. And, I was going to some great places and see some great out of the way lodges that most people don't get to go to. So that's what I try to do, is just share that. And then it started, I was doing photos of it, and then somebody was like, hey, why don't you video some of that? I said, well, I have videoed a little bit, but and I thought about a podcast and things, but I'm just so busy with everything that I have a lot of great ideas, but it's just trying to find the time to do it.
Mhm.
So basically, I finally got it. After some encouragement, I started a YouTube channel, the Lone Star Freemason, and started posting. I've so for a long time I've been videoing lodges that I would visit, and sometimes I can't get inside, so it'd be just hey, I'm going by this lodge today, and we just video the outside of it. And maybe give a little history on it or something. But
Mhm.
and then some I'm able to visit and able to go inside and do it. So it's kind of a conglomeration of different things, and it's basically just I'm blessed to be able to travel around, and I just try to share experiences and just give brothers something to look at and something to enjoy. And it's like all my brothers can go with me and enjoy it with me, even when I'm by myself.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of what it is for me, and it's just um, kind of just a way that I'm able to share the fraternity as well, because it is an open forum. I don't put anything in, that's obviously that we're not supposed to. So it's out there for people that are not Masons, and I guess some people have asked questions about it, and I've directed them to their local lodge and helped them out. So
Yeah.
it's been a good, it's been a great way to just communicate and be able to just share my travels and my thoughts on Masonry.
Well, it's very fortunate you've been able to actually help people find lodges. I get requests about like that, but there's usually somebody in Ghana or Libya or it's like I have no
Right.
idea how to help you, man. You're just gonna have to find it on your own. But yeah,
Right.
someone from actually the United States, if you're in Texas or somewhere in the United States and you want to find out how to join, me or Jason could probably help you out. But I'm sorry if you're in Ghana or anywhere like that. I don't know
Well,
what to tell you, man. You
I've,
just
I've
gotta.
well, and a lot for me has been Kenya and all that stuff too. But you know what? I've given them the contact information for the Grand Lodge there, and
Mhm.
I've passed it along. I just don't want to say, hey, I get sorry, I can't help you, but I do what I can to help them, even though some of it might be questionable. But you try to help the best way you can, and that's um, and there's been people asking me for assistance and things like that. So in other countries, and I would just direct them to their Grand Lodge there, and
Mhm.
they've contacted them. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
You have but the majority of it's been positive. So
I had a Nigerian prince ask me for help. I still haven't got the reimbursement he promised, but any day now, I know it's coming.
it's coming. It'll be there one day. So yeah, I'm just that's not within my cable toe. So
Yeah.
I don't do it.
I feel as though this has been a great conversation. We're running towards probably an hour and a half or 2 hours now. Do you have anything else you want to add or any comments you want to just throw out there?
Well, I thank you so much for inviting me and having me here, and been a big fan and been watching you for a while, and really enjoy it. And I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, and it's a true honor. So I do appreciate it. And
Well,
um, you know, if you ever want to collaborate on something else, definitely, I'm looking forward to it. So looking forward to just doing a lot more things. So.
awesome.
Um,
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do something else sometime in the future. I appreciate you taking the time, like I said, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. It's been a great conversation, and I just can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Thank you. My pleasure. And hopefully we can really help our fraternity and be able to help lodges and help our brothers out. So, I think we have a bright future. I don't care what anybody says about it. I think if we do the things that you talk about and that we're trying to do in the lodges, I know the district teams and Grand Lodge officers, we have a bright future coming. And right now things are going great, and we've just really got a great future. And I'm looking forward to being a great part of that. So looking great forward to the future of
Sir.
Masonry. So
Well, here's to a
thank you,
bright
brother.
future, and I'll catch
Thank you,
you
sir.
and everybody else in the next video. Thank you, sir. Brother Jason West, everybody. Man, that was a great interview. I really enjoyed it. We talked about so many good things. We talked about how Freemasonry offers something that men cannot find elsewhere. We also looked at what Freemasonry actually offers, and are we offering that in our lodges? That alone is worthy of its own podcast. But I have spoken in the past about how I believe that Freemasonry offers something that men can't find elsewhere as well. We live in a world today that is fast paced and superficial. Everything is cheap and easy. and easily discarded. These are all things that go against our nature as humans, in my personal belief. As a human race, we have spent the past several thousand years working for everything that we have earned. Nothing was quick or easy or cheap. There's a certain amount of gratification that comes from actually earning something and working towards something and accomplishing it. But so many things in our modern world fly in the face of what we have experienced for the past 1,000 years. It's the opposite now. Everything is quick and easy. But Freemasonry offers something that represents the way things used to be, I suppose you could say. By its nature, it is not easy to get into. There's a lot of work involved in advancing through the degrees. It's not necessarily cheap, or it shouldn't be. Freemasonry gives men, particularly young men, a way to tap into that instinct to work towards something and obtain something. Now, without spending a huge amount of time on this point, because there's other things I want to address, I will also say that if you choose to believe what I'm telling you, then this flies in the face of attempts to make Freemasonry even cheaper and easier and quicker, such as the Blue Lightning, the 1 day degrees, keeping fees low, making the petitioning process extremely fast, or in some cases, removing as much of it as you can. These are all things that make Freemasonry more in line with how everything else is done today. If you want to make Freemasonry quick and easy and cheap, then it will be easily obtainable, easily discarded, and you won't retain people because that's not what they're looking for when they come to Freemasonry. So that's what Freemasonry offers. The real question now that I can't answer for you, but each of you need to answer for yourself, is this what lodges are offering? Is this what your lodge is bringing to the table for its existing members and new members? We don't need to be ashamed of what we are. We need to embrace it. We also discuss lodge revitalization, bringing a brother back, getting inactive members involved again in the lodge. And I touched on this a little bit during the actual conversation with Jason, but I think it's great if you can bring brothers back. It is my personal belief that we need to focus more on our current members than bringing in new members. Now, some of you may be asking, why would I think that's the best approach when we're losing members broadly across the country? And my reasoning for that is really simple. The brothers that we have not retained are already brothers. They are Masons. We have an obligation to them first and foremost. And that might be as simple as finding out why they aren't attending lodge. But we also have a duty as to do everything we can to bring them back if what they're expecting is in the parameters of what we should actually be offering. If they joined thinking that we're like the Lions Club or something, and they wanted a service organization, well then that we dropped the ball during the petitioning process as far as that goes. But if they feel as though their needs aren't being met, we're not offering any value, then we need to find out what we can do to correct that and bring them back. Which ties right into my original point in the conversation. It's a great idea to try to bring brothers back, but if we are doing the same things as when they left originally, they're not going to come back. Why would they? There's a reason everybody leaves. And if that reason is still there, if their needs aren't being met or they're feeling unfulfilled in the lodge, and all we're still doing is just opening and reading the minutes and closing, they're not going to stick around. You might not even get them to come back. So bringing a brother back is a great idea, but there's a lot more of a process behind it than simply giving someone a phone call and asking them to come back. I'm not saying that won't be the case for a few brothers, but overall, I'll go back to what I said originally. There's a reason they left, and we have to correct that before they'll come back. We also talk about helping brothers find their place in the fraternity. And Brother West recommends we give brothers something to do, give them some type of work, and not necessarily what we need as a lodge, but what that brother is looking for. So if he's interested in learning the work, or if he wants to help confer degrees, or if he wants to learn lectures or join a funeral team, The idea is identify what he wants to do and put him to work as soon as you can. Now, this actually conflicts a bit with my last interview with Brother Dennis Yates, in which he suggests that putting brothers in the line as soon as they receive their masters and turn in their work is a negative thing. So if you haven't listened to that, I recommend you go back and listen to that as well, because you have two almost conflicting ideas, and I think they're both valid. And I think in the last episode, even during the wrap up, I pointed out that I could see both sides. There is a lot to digest within the actual work of the fraternity. You have very exoteric meanings and then very esoteric meanings. And it has been recommended, like I said, that the brother deep dive into the esoteric of what he has already learned before he takes on more work. I see both sides. They both have value. But I think at the end of the day, it really depends on what that brother is looking for. Brother West also talks about how Freemasonry exceeded his expectations because it has become a big part of his life. I really think that's a fresh insight. I have heard many answers as I have spoke with other brothers if Freemasonry has exceeded their expectations. And you get a wide range of answers. But however, saying that it has become such a big part of their life and I never thought that it originally would is very powerful, very relatable to me. I didn't realize that Freemasonry was going to be such a big part of my life as well. And so it's definitely exceeded my expectations in that aspect. And I really appreciate Brother West pointing that out from his perspective, because it gives me new insight as well into the role that Freemasonry has played in my life. We talked about how education is a strength and a weakness in our fraternity. And this is not an unusual trend. It's something I'm actually noticing as I speak with more and more brothers. Our strengths are also often our own weaknesses because it's a two-edged sword. In this case, Masonic education has something very valuable to offer to its members. But when it's not actually being offered in lodge, or when it's being offered poorly, it does more harm than good. And in fact, if you don't have education in your Masonic meetings, then you're going back to just a bare bones meeting, which is something we've already hit on several times in this episode. So I don't want to keep reiterating and repeating myself. But if you're just opening for the sake of going over your minutes and talking about communications, you're missing a huge opportunity to have some kind of education and present something of actual value in your lodge. Which brings me to my next point, how transformation can make or break a lodge. Often during the course of these conversations, things come to my mind. I get these light bulb moments where things just click, things that are common sense or really I already know. And I suspect the same for many of you listeners, but you just don't put them together until you actually have this conversation. And this is one of those points. Transformation makes or breaks a lodge. We've all seen two types of lodges. A lodge is either in the process of dying or it's in the process of growing. There's nothing in between. There's no neutral ground for lodges. Either it's a dying lodge or it's a thriving lodge. And the difference is transformation. Is this lodge doing something different than the surrounding lodges? If we just follow the cookie cutter formula or the path of least resistance with your meetings, with your lodge's approach in general, then your lodge is going to be dying. It's a dying organization at that point because you're just doing the minimum, and that's not going to attract anybody. It's definitely not going to retain most people. If you're doing something transformative, if you're actually doing something that is against the grain, and I'm not talking about doing anything that's outside what is accepted within the laws of your Masonic jurisdiction, but it's going beyond the norm. It's raising the bar on your practices. It's expecting more out of yourselves and giving more in return. Things like this are what are transformative in the fraternity and will attract people to your lodge and retain them as well. We discussed the importance of visiting other lodges. This is something that I've actually seen firsthand, particularly when I was a very new Mason. When I originally joined, the lodge that I was a member of was actually pretty healthy. Now, the meetings weren't anything special, but the visitation was a huge aspect at the lodge. we coordinated visiting other lodges during their meetings. And what this did was encourage other lodges to visit ours as well. So we had pretty good turnouts, and it encouraged people to stay active. And so even though this is nothing phenomenal or anything that's groundbreaking, it did have a very impact on me as a young Mason, because even I could see that if a group of us was to go to a local lodge, then members of that lodge would reciprocate and they would come visit during our meetings as well. It really helps foster brotherhood, strengthens the bonds of the fraternity. And while it doesn't bring in new members by itself, it does bring everybody closer, which is very important. I've also implemented this by introducing younger or newer brothers to lodges that have practices that I would like to eventually adopt in my lodge, but the lodge itself isn't necessarily ready for, if that makes sense. For example, there is a lodge that's not local, but it's not too far to drive to. And some brothers from Texas will probably know what lodge I'm talking about, but there is one in Waco. They do really wonderful things with their degrees. I try to bring brothers to their degrees as often as I can, just because I want them to see what a degree can be like, what the potential for it is, as opposed to just doing, unfortunately, in many cases, what is the minimum. If you introduce a brother to a lodge where their practices are raising the bar, then that creates a different set of expectations for that brother than he would have if he had only been exposed to the degrees at his own lodge or lodges nearby that are practicing degrees the same way. So if you want to see brothers from other lodges attending yours more often, or if you know of lodges that have practices you want to adopt at your own lodge, these are two very excellent reasons to encourage visitation. Masonic funerals also came up numerous times. And I think it's really interesting that we discuss this, because I was in a conversation a few months ago with some brothers about how Masonic funerals used to be a much bigger deal. In fact, we often look at an increase of membership during and shortly after big wars, such as World War I and World War II, Civil War. And it's assumed that men want to get into some kind of brotherhood. You know, they miss the bonds that they forged with other men during war. And that's certainly possible. You know, I joined shortly after I got out of the Air Force because I wanted something to sort of replace that bond. But something that we often overlook is that this isn't necessarily the case any longer. But there was a time where if you died on the battlefield, that's where your body stayed, meaning you were left to, you know, whatever animals wanted to come eat you, you just rot out in the sun. And that was a terrible fate. And so it was known that by joining the fraternity, by becoming a Freemason, you would receive a Masonic funeral if it was at all possible. So instead of your body being left out to the elements, your brothers would retrieve your body and give you a proper funeral. The importance of a proper funeral historically cannot be overstated. Even today, we still want to receive a proper funeral, but it's kind of taken for granted. So there's that to consider. The Masonic funeral was and is a big deal. And so I'll again point out, if you look in the minutes of older lodges and old newspaper clippings, you will often see that Masonic funerals were a much bigger deal. People took time out of their day. They would actually march in procession to the graveside and give the funeral service. And often they were dressed very nicely, white gloves, and this made a huge impact on the community. It was the last service in the most important service that a lodge could offer to any of its members. And today, the Masonic funeral is not really something that's emphasized anymore. It's a service we offer, but brothers don't go out of the way to attend. And it's often just bare bones. And we rarely dress up or do anything to, again, raise that bar. So this is something that's actually been on my mind before speaking with Jason. I didn't know he was so involved with the funeral team where he's at. But I had actually been thinking of this as well on my own, that it's important to have a strong funeral team and do everything you can to make it the best Masonic funeral you can present with your brothers. Obviously, we can't march a procession down a highway or anything like that, but we have to do the best we can within the confines of modern society. Finally, we talk about the Lone Star Freemason, which is Brother West's blog, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. His blog and YouTube channel, if you check it out, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of content on it. It's still good content, but follow him on Facebook. He posts stuff on a very regular basis. I enjoy seeing his travels and hearing the insight that he occasionally posts on there. So check out his blog, like his Facebook page, subscribe to his YouTube channel, do everything you can to give him your support. I'm also going to include links to each of those things in the show notes as well. And so check them out. Last but not least, consider buying me a coffee and checking out my Patreon. I'd really like to be at a point where I can turn off advertisements on my content. However, it takes time to create these videos, these podcasts, my blog post, and time is money. So when I receive enough support on Patreon that it exceeds what I would receive through my advertisements, then I will turn them off. However, until then, I will keep them on. And to be completely frank with you, brothers, if you enjoy this content, if you appreciate it, if you get anything of value out of it, then you should seriously consider a contribution, even if it's a small amount. A little bit from a lot of people goes a long ways. So to end this on an up note, I've already got my next interview lined up. It's going to be excellent. I'm not going to spoil who it is, but I'm really looking forward to that interview as well. And you'll see that one after this week. So take care, brothers, and thank you again for listening or watching, depending on if you're on YouTube or on a podcast. Until next time, brothers.